Hello, everybody. How are you all doing? I'm sure you're having a great reinvent. And today's session is going to be about reimagining your business with enterprise AI and also being powered by cloud. So, something which is very related to the announcement which happened this morning as well. And today's session, we will have six presenters. Myself, Ashish Mehta, responsible for data and AI practice within Infosys. Then we'll have Stephen Rosas, who is the Vice President BI Spectrum. He would be joining us. Then we have Krishnan Srinivasan. He's a director enterprise architecture from United. He would be joining us after that. And then Juan Acosta, director Citizen Bank. He would be joining us immediately. And finally, the closing would be done by Shyam from Infosys and Dominic Murphy, who runs GenAI for AWS. So that's how we're going to be doing it. So, quick agenda. I'll be talking about getting enterprise data ready for AI, that our point of view on that, and what are the challenges that various enterprises are facing with that. And then I will be bringing in three of our clients, starting with Stephen Rosas from Spectrum, who would be talking about how they actually transformed their landscape and made it ready from an AI perspective. Subsequently, we'll have Krishna Srinivasan from United Airlines, who will be talking about his journey to make United an AI first company. Followed by Juan Acosta from Citizen Bank, how he has been transforming assisted channels in Citizens. And subsequently, we'll have Shyam from Infosys and Dominic Murphy from AWS to basically provide the closing remarks and how they are transforming with cloud. So within my session, I would be actually focusing on two areas. I will initially start with Infosys point of view, or how we position ourselves in the market from a data and AI perspective. So we see the adoption of data and AI across three canvases, as we call them. Canvas 1 is all about transforming itself from a digital core to a cognitive core. And this is where enterprises make themselves from data ready from an AI perspective, or setting up the necessary foundation for AI. And this is where you'll see many organizations struggling with their data not being ready, or they're not AI ready from an AI perspective. They do not have the right strategies. And this is where the enterprises build their foundations. And not only the foundation, they also build AI solutions in which they have human augmented by AI. So for example, solutions where you have chatbots for let's say network, or for network management, which actually tells the enterprises that, hey, these are the network challenges they are having, and what are the recommendations to solve them. Or you have in a telco a chatbot telling that, hey, these subscribers are at risk of churning, and you need to make sure that you address those issues with them. So Canvas 1 is all about human augmented by AI and building the foundation. Channel 2 is where we basically do vertical integration of data across multiple domain and create enterprise level insights in real time. And when augmented by AI, you get a 10x kind of exponential impact immediately from that. And this is where you actually build transformational solution, where you build AI-driven data, AI-driven products, or AI-driven campaign management, or even AI-driven supply chain and SKU management, where actually the AI twin actually drives the whole supply chain and making sure the messages and next best actions are going to the suppliers as well as manufacturer, so that the right SKU is provided in the right store or in the distribution center. So those are the kind of example. And one of the things we did it for a large telco is that, so this telco is actually adopted digital technologies long back. But what they were struggling with is, while they were having good insight from a care perspective, they were not able to drive significant acquisition or cross-sell, upsell through their digital channels. This is where actually we correlated data across their 10 plus business domains, and were able to, and this digital hub which we built for them, allowed to give in real-time insights about the customer journeys they are doing, the campaign management they are doing, and actually using those insights. And when along with GenAI, the insights which were coming from customer journeys or new product introduction or NPS scores, to do real-time actions through GenAI for driving business. Canvas 3 is all about reimagining business with data and AI economy. This is where the horizontal integration happens with your partners. And one of the best example I can do is actually today's world, almost every enterprise is looking for capturing revenues and business outside of regular model. And one example which we did for a large beverage company is that we actually transformed them. I mean, you can easily guess it, transform them from a coffee company to a coffee experience shop by partnering with Spotify as well as Uber Eats. So something we established for them. The key point that I want to make in this slide is that the AI is going to happen across the enterprise. It's not a maturity curve. You will have both legacy as well as greenfield implementation. So legacy is where you will be focusing on transforming them, modernizing them, and actually building the foundation right from an AI perspective. You will also have business who will not wait for that foundation, but actually create new business model or transformation business model to drive that. So you will see AI across all these three things. But as I said, the AI is not easy. We just did a radar, or we did a survey, and that survey is actually available on Infosys.com. That was survey across 1,500 executives from our CXOs and clients from Infosys. And the survey said that while the spend on the AI side has increased significantly, there is the adoption from the satisfaction for the various executives is less than 50%. Less than 50% executive are actually happy with the AI work that they are doing. And almost everybody said that less than 20% POCs actually, AI POC go into production. Now, we measure the AI readiness. When we did this survey, we asked them questions on AI readiness across these 5 different dimensions. Number 1 was strategy. So strategy means that what AI initiatives that they are defined, which actually align with their business vision, or what AI initiatives, or how's the ROI going in, and whether it aligns with their governance model and all that from ethics perspective. So we found that only 12% of the executives, 1,200 executives, said that they have an AI strategy in place. Similarly, from a governance perspective, when we said, hey, do you have a formal governance model in place to make sure that the right security, the ethics, the responsible AI is happening? You're not having hallucination from an AI perspective. You are actually taking care of privacy and all those things. Only about 11% actually said that they have a proper governance model in place. Same thing from a technology, and technology is actually from a talent perspective. About 35% of the enterprises say that they are actually making sure that their employees are actually being trained on new tools and technology from an AI. From a technology perspective, almost everybody was worried about all these LLMs, all these new technologies coming with GenAI, and they are saying that the whole lot of time is actually being spent on doing technology POCs, which they need not be doing. The biggest challenge came from a data perspective. Now, data is becoming a much more challenge. Earlier, if you look at the universe of data, it is not only mainframe data, it is machine-generated data, it is SAP data, ERP data that you can see, or even for that matter, user-generated data, the emails, the videos, the audio files. Now the enterprises are looking for AI across this. But what is missing is that you don't have the semantics of this data or the fingerprinting of this data. What does fingerprinting mean? This is a very interesting concept. And I will explain it in more simple terms in that if you look at your Outlook or an email, what you have on the top bar is who sent the email, where the email came from, whether the email is important or not. What it doesn't tell you is that which domain this email is from, whether it is accounting or HR or anything else, whether it contains profanity, does it contain discrimination, or what are the entitlements from an email perspective. None of that information is there, which is needed from an AI perspective. Now, without that fingerprinting information, you are not ready from an AI perspective, and that's what enterprises are having challenges with. Now, how do we address that? So we're talking about new value capabilities from an AI perspective. We're talking about collation of data in the metadata in one single place. No matter where your enterprise data is lying, whether it is on the mainframe or audio files, video files. You need to collate the metadata and the information about the data in one single place, basically unified management of AI in one single place, or one place to manage the whole data. Even if you are not able to move the data, it is impossible to move the whole enterprise data into one single place, but you need to have a unified collation of metadata happening, followed by smart fingerprinting. And this fingerprinting is very important. If you do not do fingerprinting, you will see the symptoms of hallucination and all those things happening later on. Now, fingerprinting is going to harvest the knowledge for you and actually build a smart data fabric, which is going to drive your AI. Followed by synthesizing AI-based decisions, and this is where we bring in our solutions like AI Brain to actually drive structural auxiliarity and logical thinking. Finally, correlation. Correlation across multiple domains is very important as data people out there or AI people out there. And with combination of Gen AI, you can actually build a compounded effect with the AI twins out there. And finally, activation of AI across all different channels and end-to-end governance happening for these data models and data, as well as from a security, compliance, and ethics perspective. So please do, so in order to understand fingerprinting and all these concepts, please do come down to our booth, Infosys booth, and we can have demos for each one of those in detail. Now, for each of these capabilities, we have our offerings. If you look at the offerings, actually are addressing all the 5 dimensions. You have the AI strategy and the value office, and supported by AI governance. And in the middle, you have the offerings from getting enterprise data ready for an AI perspective, making sure your fingerprinting, data synthesis, and all those things are happening. Then the AI-powered business transformation, which is actually your use cases from a business perspective, and building an AI economy, which is you're reimagining your business out there. So all these offerings are going to drive the challenge from an enterprise AI perspective. Now, I'm going to invite Stephen Rosas onto the stage. So Stephen actually, the Spectrum actually has been driving transformation of data and making it ready from an AI perspective. Over to you, Stephen.
Great, thanks Ashish, and thanks to Infosys for having me today. My name is Stephen Rosas. I work for Spectrum. If you've done business with us, you might know us as Charter Communications. But in our industry, there's a phrase that content is king, and in the world of AI, data is king. And so I hope to tell you a little story about how we're on our journey on the data to prepare for AI. Missing the clicker. Thanks. So a little bit about Spectrum as a company. We provide cable services to over 31 million customers. We're one of the largest operators in the United States, with the fastest growing mobile provider in the United States as well. We're the largest and fastest growing rural internet provider, and we operate in 41 states, providing services to over 58 million homes. So that just gives us a little context for who we are. Our business intelligence group provides single source of truth of key company facts that measure both business and labor performance. We do that service to over 12 different business units. So you can think of that as customer operations, marketing, sales. They're all internal customers of ours, and we provide the data to them. So we do that through a number of different functions, one of which is providing trusted reporting and analytics solutions to these users. We also curate and provision data as a product and provide that. You can think of that going to our analyst communities, our data science communities, and so forth. We also curate a timeline of customer events, and that timeline is useful for things like journey and process-based analytics, so slightly different analytical use case. And lastly, we're chartered with providing a well-governed data platform. And so that's the big story here, is our migration from a legacy data platform to a modern Redshift data platform. So giving you a little sense of scale, our data warehouse is over 600 terabytes. We process about 32,000 jobs every single day from over 200 different data sources. We've got about 25,000 reporting users, primarily in MicroStrategy, and we do support over 1,000 direct database connections. So that analyst and SQL analyst and that data science community, they're able to query our data warehouse directly for their use cases. And so that's a little sense of scale. And I will add or provide a caveat that this scale is for business events. So we're not curating system logs or system events. We bring it up to the business grain, and we provide that as part of our standardized data model. So with that, it's important to understand, like, why did we want to migrate? So our legacy platform provided a number of different challenges for us. We saw Redshift, after evaluating the market, as being a really great solution for us. And so our business objectives were to improve speed to market and agility, have a better user experience for our internal customers, better performance. We also wanted to position our platforms and the company to provide AI-driven insights, which is the topic of not only this session, but I think most sessions today. And we wanted to mitigate some disaster recovery risks as well as reduce operating expenses. And so there were some technical objectives that we tied to this. We really wanted to decouple compute from storage. We saw that as a key advantage, something that the industry was going towards anyway. Elastic scaling of compute and storage was also very important to us. Our use cases aren't always the same, and so supporting variable different use cases was important. We also wanted to isolate workloads. So we had a lot of contention, especially in our batch processing, and we wanted to separate our analytic workloads from our daily processing. So why did we pick Redshift? Again, our testing proved that it was the best price performance, and that price came mostly due to the ability to, like, flexible purchase options. So if you're not familiar with Redshift, you can reserve the instances, you can do serverless and so forth. We also saw that it had the fastest data loads, fastest query processing, and so we were moving to a faster solution, which we felt comfortable with. It also was a similar data architecture, and so when you think of migrating from an incumbent to something net new, if it's totally different data architectures, there's a lot of re-architecture work that you have to do, and so we factored that into our decisioning process and felt quite comfortable that it was achievable without having to start completely from scratch. AWS, it's an AWS native product, and so it works well with other services, and so that's a benefit of being in the AWS ecosystem. We wanted to realize that benefit, and I think we made the right choice. Today's announcements were really, really great for us. So lastly, it had native AI and ML features baked into the product, and so we wanted to provide our analyst community with those capabilities, and whether it's native in Redshift or an integration, we saw it as a great roadmap for us to achieve the AI objectives we had. So a little on the migration overview. We started in October of last year, and we just wrapped it up July 4th. We thought we would need the whole week of July 4th, and we sacrificed our holidays for the company just in case something went wrong, but turns out we were able to do the cutover in just 24 hours. So incredible performance, and this is really where Infosys came to help. We partnered with them as our SI for this migration work that we did, and we wound up going in phases, but I want you to think of these phases as sort of layers of a cake rather than slices of a cake. And so for our phases, we started at the foundation of building the platform itself, the security model, collecting all the data from the data sources, changing all of our ETL pipelines to be cloud native and operate in the cloud. And then we moved up the stack up to the dimensional modeling and all the way up to operating literally in, what do you call it, at the same time. We had both going at the same time. And so we were able to compare and make the cutover. And so the impact of the business was about a month where we asked for a code freeze. So no more changes being made in the legacy product. And that allowed us to cut over and have some stability for comparison testing. So it was a massive achievement for that much data for a Fortune 100 company to switch over in just 9 to 10 months. Incredibly proud of the crew. So how did we pull that off? I wanted to give you some information, so in case you were going on a similar journey, like how did you pull that off so quickly? For us, the backbone was automations. We used the AWS SCT tool, schema conversion tool, to convert our scripts. So we had a legacy syntax. We had to move all the SQL over into the new syntax. We automated that. We automated the inventory tracking, so all of the objects. That includes if an object was changed. So the business was continuing to operate on the old platform, and so if DDLs, DML changes were made, we were able to automatically track that, tag it, and indicate that more development was needed. And we also automated code promotions. So when you check in your code, we're able to move that up to the production environment automatically. And so a lot of the stuff that would normally bog us down, we automated, and this saved thousands and thousands of labor hours. Another thing we gave to our community was a self-service tool. So many people had SQLs on their desktops, and we wanted to make their lives easier. And so if the analyst had old code, they can literally upload it, receive an email, and it had the new code. And so the same exact code conversion utility we made for ourselves, we extended to our community as well. And we did not skimp on the change management activities. We created persona-based training. We created an entire internal BI university page with content for learning, and we had instructor-led learning and self-paced learning as well, recorded videos, all of that stuff. We created a lot of internal pages with reference material, and so we really focused on making sure the community was ready for this cutover. And lastly, this TITO strategy, or T1, T0, this was a great innovation of someone on our team, where we copied yesterday's data and today's data and brought that into Redshift. And that allowed all of our developers to continue to modify their stored procedures, modify their code until it output the same result. So that was a huge game changer for us, and decoupled unit testing from any sort of scheduled activities. Looking at the key takeaways, I want to give some lessons learned to you guys. So if you're going down the Redshift route, you want to distribute your workloads across multiple clusters to give you as much concurrency as possible. If you're dealing with large tables, you want to pre-warm the cache. There's a global cache in Redshift, and so you just execute the code in a lower environment with the same exact SQL, same exact configuration, and it'll pre-warm it for you. You also want to fully evaluate your character set in your files, both on the input and the output side, to make sure that those are supported. And lastly, you want to design your security model really early, especially if you're considering something like single sign-on. So in terms of the technical benefits, we checked all the boxes here. The same, isolated the compute from storage. We gained the elastic scaling, and we also gained the native AI and ML features that we were lacking in the old solution. And so we also checked all the boxes on the business side. So we have better user experience and performance. Our disaster recovery risks were mitigated. We improved the SLA for our batch processing, so the data was available earlier in the day for the analyst community. And then we also reduced our costs by 35% by switching over to Redshift. And this gives us a path to AI-driven insights. So I started the conversation saying that, data is king. I don't know if that's really a phrase, but the point is that having a well-governed data warehouse that is well cataloged and all this provides the tools for any of the AI use cases, and especially aligning ourselves to the AWS community with all the services positions us really well. So just wrapping up here on the AI journey, we've got dedicated Redshift schemas for all of our data products. So we really are data product centric now, and we want to deliver those data products to our shared analytics communities who operate in the same Redshift environments as we do. And so we allow them to come to the data rather than us pushing the data out. We also have built-in access to AI and ML models thanks to Redshift ML and SageMaker. We're starting to use that our own for data integrity. We also have data sharing. This is a key feature of Redshift that we're taking advantage of. And we're using this data, the data products that we're generating, to do call center summarization using Gen AI. So that's one of our early use cases of the platform. We also, during the project, leveraged AWS Bedrock in order to help with code conversions. And so the developers that needed help with optimizing code for the new platform, which they were not familiar with, they received all the Gen AI help that we were able to offer. That reduced the skill set, shortened the project, and helped us certainly. And lastly, I'm also responsible for the governance and the metadata management, and we've got a great catalog to offer our community as well. So that's everything I wanted to cover, but I maybe want to thank you again and pass it back to Ashish.
Thanks, Stephen. That's a wonderful journey.
Yes.
And just one thing I want to add is that look, not only Spectrum modernized the data, they actually took to a space which is AI ready. Think about it this way. Today, if you're modernizing to a cloud, and if you say that I'm going to put the stuff in the cloud, And tomorrow you go back to the CFO and say, hey, by the way, my data is not ready for AI and give me more CapEx, I don't think that would be a very good conversation. So Spectrum actually handled both of those things in one shot and doing AI right now as we speak. Now I'd like to invite Oh, yeah. So now I'd like to Krishna Srinivasan from United. He's actually going to talk about not the journey that they have taken and how they are actually going through the journey of AI adoption across the enterprise. Go ahead, Krishna.
Thanks, Ashish. Hey, thanks for this opportunity. Uh, so I'm going to quickly go over what I'm going to cover here. So going to talk about the cloud migration journey that like we had, some of the challenges we faced, and the partnership with Infosys, and like how we charted our path in setting ourselves to be an AI first company, right? So let me quickly introduce United Airlines. Like it doesn't need any introduction. So it's one of the largest airline in the world. And the mission, our mission at United Airlines is to connect people and unite the world, and we do this at a very massive scale, right? We have over 5,000 flights per day flying to over 300 airports, and every year we carry more than 165 million passengers safely to their destination, taking them to the moments that matter the most. And how are we doing this, right? More than 100,000 employees working very hard in creating these experiences for these customers. And behind the scenes on the system side, it's a very complex and intricate landscape, right? Technology landscape. Integrations of our modern and legacy systems, orchestrations through 4,000 APIs, 300 events, exabytes of data across 50 plus domains, right? All of them working together, creating these capabilities, empowering this workforce. So how did we get here, right? So our journey, our modernization journey took flight in the cloud. So we adopted a cloud-first approach in building new capabilities, because we knew we would be able to scale, react quickly to the market changes, be nimble, innovate, and most importantly, run a reliable operations. We quickly streamlined some of the complex and repetitive tasks through automation. That is a critical component in any effective and efficient cloud implementation and migration strategy. So once we got there, we started building the integrated platforms for connecting these capabilities and centralizing the data. So data across all of the domains, right? Like the operations, crew, revenue, digital, all of that like started coming into the single data platform called United Data Hub. And that set the stage for like leveraging AI, machine learning to start drawing insights and analytics. And start like the analytics, which basically enable the business to go start creating these personalized, consistent, real-time experiences for these customers, because that is the expectation of today's consumers, right? And on the operations side, they started driving excellence through real-time decision-making, through predictive maintenance, flight optimizations. So where we are headed is we have started infusing Gen AI at the core of everything that we do. What we do, how we do, right? So again, if you ask me, was this journey smooth? Is it going to be smooth? Do you guys have everything covered? No, we're not going to, right? So we, just like any other organization that's going through digital transformation or like has gone through one, so we too have our own set of challenges and setbacks, right? So we came into this like with a heavy data center mindset, because we are a data center based company. And like some of the core functions are in our monolithic legacy systems. Integrations are very complex, and like they pose operational issues too there. And like technology sprawl led to data integration complexities for us, and that too started leading to data getting siloed, right? Manual governance process was there, which demanded excessive bandwidth. And multiple partners, varying implementations, that to increase the risk and inefficiencies. And on top of that, like we were hit with the COVID-19 at the start of this journey, right? So in spite of all these turbulence and headwinds, our leadership was very focused and kept the employees motivated in our vision of making United one of the best airline in the aviation history. And so they continued doing all of the strategic investments in the employees, data center, in the facilities, infrastructure, product enhancements, right? And the leadership within digital technology they kept their vision and pressed forward with our cloud agenda, right? So we fastened our seatbelts, partnered with one of our strategic partners, Infosys, in started creating the flight plan for this journey. So we collaborated with the teams, right? So one of the things that Infosys brought to the table was their expertise and experience in doing transformations at this scale, their like domain knowledge of the airline business, and their like industry best practices. So the first thing we did is started collaborating with the teams within business and technology, identifying the use cases, patterns, and started creating these reference architectures, and along with a decision guide to help select the right tech stack for these use cases. And then like we started codifying them into templates, Terraform, and CloudFormation. And we started baking in all of the best practices related to cost optimization, all of the non-functional requirements related to security, resiliency, observability. We started baking all of them into these templates, creating these starter kits that like the teams would use for getting their environment set up. And sometimes it's with a sample application that they'll be able to start coding all the functional requirements in minutes, right? So all of the core functions like logging, authentication, DR, everything was also building. This is the automation I was referring to earlier. This was all getting built into accelerators. And all of this was made available through self-serve portals for these teams that they were able to come in and access easily. And we also made it open for the teams to be able to go make any changes that was needed for their use case. And the best part was they were able to contribute back to the stack, right? So this helped drive the adoption and also created the community culture, and then also helped propagate like the best practices and also the knowledge sharing among the teams, right? So here is a glimpse. Everybody loves numbers. So here is a glimpse of like what we created and the outcome, right? Like we have over 200 enablers that got created across reference architectures, the enterprise services, and templates, and then like more than 100 plus applications leverage these to power their way into the cloud in the most resilient and secure way. And we also created a single plane, a comprehensive dashboard based on the well-architected framework, capturing over 24 metrics across all dimensions, right? Security, your development, deployment, right? And then like that is how we streamline the governance. So the outcome, more than 70% of our workloads are in cloud that have been deployed in a more resilient and secure way, right? So we saw this help reduce the outage time and the cost of periodic disruptions during the CrowdStrike incident that happened like a few months back, right? And United was one of the airlines that had fewer cancellation and recovered earlier than most of our competitors. And not only that, when I talk about competitors, right, United has always been reimagining the way we do business, especially in the travel, right, like in the travel space. So be it every flight has a story, or like family seating, connection saver, backdrop shortcut, right? Like there are so many things that United continues to reimagine, rethink the way we do it. So this basically set the stage for us to be able to leverage generative AI. And now we enable the business not only to think different, but think bigger and bolder. So we have 80 plus use cases at United till date, which are in various stages of implementation, right? Like from feasibility all the way up to being operational. So I want to quickly highlight a couple of the success stories, right? Every flight has a story, which we launched in 2018. United's commitment to the customers to inform them in plain English why their flight was delayed or canceled. We have 15 storytellers who access so many systems and then like go through logs in figuring out the reason and crafting this message, which gets pushed out through notifications, SMS, emails to the customers, right? Start of this year, so we leveraged Amazon Bedrock along with S3, Lambda, Elastic Cache. We started training these models to start understanding this data and start crafting this message. So what used to take 5 to 15 minutes for the storytellers, now we can get it done in 28 seconds. This is generating the message, auto-validating it, and including a human review. So we were able to send more than 100,000 messages since its launch in March. During a bad weather day, a couple of hubs are like having a bad weather issue. When the storytellers were sending it out, we were able to cover 15% of the flights. The rest will still get a standard message in plain English, they'll get it, but like 15% will get more custom messages. With this, we were able to push it to more than 50% of the flights. And then now it's going to get bigger. So we are been sending this at a flight level. Everybody on the flight will get the same message. Now we are going to take it to the customer level. So number of messages will go from thousands to millions. It's going to include information about people's connections, people's rebooking information along with this message. So look at the power of this, right? So this is going to help. This has already reduced this has helped us increase 6 points in the customer satisfaction score. Another use case on the employee front is agents at the airports and contact centers. They use these shares, which is our mainframe, one of our mainframe systems, which is used for reservations, managing departure control, and so on, right? And so they use this to do the research whenever customers come to the agent asking questions about, why did you guys change my seat? I used to have an row 8 aisle seat. You push me to a 32 back of the plane middle seat. So they spend 15 to 30 minutes doing the research. And the people who do the research, they're very proficient in shares, right? So they have been working in shares. They know how to understand the cryptic codes and commands to be able to figure this all out. But think about the new agents, right? Like we are kind of bringing on board, right? So they don't have this many years in shares, and it takes them more time. So what we did, the PSS of the shares is in its modernization journey, right? It's getting refactored, going into the cloud. So data is being moved into DocumentDB, all of the seating history, the offers, reservations. So we trained the Amazon Bedrock model on this data and made that summarize the data for us. What used to take 30 minutes is getting summarized in few seconds. And not only that, what only few thousand people used to be able to do it, right? The customers would have to wait, right? So now we have empowered 15,000 of our frontline employees to be able to interact with shares in plain English, get this information, and serve it to the customers, right? And now how it's going to get bigger? Now we are going to wrap this up in digital channels, making it available for customers to get it by themselves without having to touch an agent. So where are we headed? So we are continuing to identify more use cases, put through our responsible AI framework, and finding the ones that are best fit for AI, for generative AI. And so we are continuing to reimagine the way we do business. One of my personal favorite ones is reimagining how we do business within digital technology, right? The business of software development. So we are getting ready to start leveraging. When I say ready, is we have been piloting, and we are getting ready to start using Gen AI for all phases of SDLC. From user requirements to stories to design, wireframe, coding, testing, documentation, and also it will get bigger by getting it to start doing operational support, right? Like operational support. So what we had created with Infosys, the foundational blocks and accelerating our journey to the cloud, we are just supercharging it with generative AI. I'm very excited about this. I'm looking forward to come and talking to you guys about this success story in one of the future sessions. So thank you very much for your time, and thanks for the great partnership, Ashish. Thanks.
Thanks, Krishna. So key point here, I mean, when we spoke about enterprise AI and the recipe for success, we spoke about 5 dimensions, right? In both the stories, and actually in the subsequent one also, you saw those 5 dimensions being addressed: the strategy, the governance, the talent, and culture, of course, along with technology and data. So this is key, and this is how 2 of our clients ended. Now I'd like to invite Yuan Acosta to discuss the journey in Citizen Bank.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ashish, and thank you, Infosys, for giving me the opportunity to come out here and share a little bit of the story of our transformation story at Citizens. So for those of you that, For those of you that don't know about Citizens, we are the 11th largest bank in the country with over $228 billion in assets. And over the past 4 years, as an organization, as a bank, we've gone through a massive transformation, both from a cloud transformation standpoint and a massive rationalization and consolidation of applications throughout the bank. A little bit about my focus is I lead all of the technology and the applications within the bank. across our branches, across our contact centers, and that includes our IVR and our chat bots. So a little bit of background, when we started what we call our next-gen technology transformation, within my area of responsibility, we had over 100 different applications that our colleagues had to use day to day to service our customers. So part of my charter was to come in and try to rationalize, try to consolidate, and do a massive cloud migration. So take all of those applications and figure out how we're going to either move them to the cloud, or what we did is took a strategy of we created a homegrown application on AWS Cloud, which then we not just move the functionality over, but we've done a whole transformation and a whole reimagining on what we provide for our customers, for our colleagues to service our customers. So our business overall is going through a massive cloud migration as an organization. And our partnership with Infosys and our partnership with AWS has been instrumental in laying the foundation and in helping us get to where we want to be as an organization. Now, some of our key priorities for what we call top customer experience, leveraging AI and cloud. I'll tell a little bit of the story with our call centers and our IVR. So we're leveraging Amazon Connect and Lex to go from what I would call a very basic IVR, where you're basically pressing one to move through different functionality, to now being able to to install voice capabilities where our customers can basically talk and then figure out exactly where they're going to go throughout the IVR menus, which makes it a very seamless process for our customers to either solve what they want to do using the IVR or quickly get to a representative to assist them. Well, some of the other things that we're doing across the enterprise is as we reinvent and as we transform all of these applications, we are providing features and new functionality to our colleagues to be able to do cross-sell of products, improving our proactive communications with our customers, so being able to offer them next best action capabilities. So those are all things that we've worked to implement and to help the life of our colleagues each and every day. Some of the other things that we're exploring and doing pilots and proof of concepts are on understanding customer sentiment. So as the customer talks to our contact center agents, we're able to understand how they're feeling and guide our colleagues to provide a world-class customer experience. As far as cost optimization is concerned, we've gained efficiency through automation, and Infosys has been a key partner for us to enable us to automate and reduce overall cost of our applications. Also, we've been able to with those same functionalities that we've provided for our customers, for our tellers, for our bankers, for our contact center agents, we've been able to optimize agents and reduce teller hours and reduce tellers in the branches in general. So what does our North Star view framework looks like? You can see here that some of the we're adding new journeys and enhancing and upgrading existing journeys for both our colleagues that are servicing our customers, and obviously providing better digital capabilities for our customers in our online banking and our mobile platforms that we're also enhancing. as I mentioned earlier, action-oriented AI capabilities for our agents. One of the recent things that we've delivered as far as AI is concerned is we took our knowledge management and we were able to just take it from a system where it was, basically a customer looking, our colleagues looking for knowledge-based articles on servicing our customers, where they had to read through whole articles to find what they were looking for, to now just being able to ask a question and in the background, our application finds the answer and basically gives them the answer instead of them having to read through whole articles to do that. So it's greatly improved the time to service customers. So where are we with our journey today? I can tell you from assisted channel standpoint, when I started with the bank a little bit under 4 years ago, as I mentioned, we had 100 applications plus. Today, 4 years later, we are down to less than 30 applications, many of them migrated into one single application on the cloud. And all the remaining of them have already been migrated to the cloud. And we are continuing to work on transforming those into more modern platforms. Our teller platform is going to completely be migrated into the cloud in Q1 of 2025. And we've already delivered our first Amazon Connect use case with our national accounts that Citizens has. And we're currently working on exploring what else we can do with Amazon Connect as far as the rest of our voice response systems. And as far as our digital chat, our digital assistant, we're currently working and partnering with Infosys on how we can take that to the next level and add voice capabilities to our chat. So instead of just customers having, typing in what they want to know about, they'll be able to speak into it and still get the same response using AI. So that's a little bit of the journey. Thank you very much for inviting me to come out here, and thank you all for listening.
Thanks, Juan. So I spoke about the radar or the survey that we did with 1,500 of our clients, and we interviewed actually quite a few of them. And when we were talking about the various dimensions, and one of the things he said that, hey, the world is talking about AI for quite a while, especially Hollywood, right? They're talking about since 82 with Terminator came in and all that. He said the enterprise AI is so complex that, look, they were trying to kill Terminator, and I don't know, they couldn't figure out how to kill it until they just melted it. But the client said that if you actually feed my enterprise data to the Terminator will die right away. So that's why our chairman says that, hey, the models are perishable, the data is here to stay, and it's very important for an enterprise AI. Now I'd like to invite Shyam and Dominique to actually actually talk about how the whole foundation is driven by cloud, and actually also provide the necessary closing comments. Thank you, Shyam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish. Dominic, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So far, we heard about a little bit of the Infosys perspective from Ashish, followed by client journeys, right, for 3 of our joint customers. Now, you have a very different perspective and a very different vantage point. So I'd like to hear, some of your perspectives on different areas, starting with use cases, right? So when you look at 2025, what do you see customers really building out in this year, coming year, and why?
That's a great question. And so as we look into 2025, we're not yet done with 2024. Yes. So maybe I'll start there and then kind of look into what we're starting to see in 2025. So we're continuing to see customers really get a lot of value across a number of what I'd call horizontal use cases, as well as industry-specific use cases. Horizontal use cases around content creation, around document processing and document summarization, and around, well, some of what we heard also today in terms of enhancing customer contact center intelligence. Now, what we're seeing getting launched in early next year, and I think we're going to see this continue to extend, is customers are getting really excited about multimodality. Now, text has been amazing so far, and text is not going away as a modality. But once you start looking at being able to process and generate audio and process and generate video, it really gives an exponential increase in terms of the number of potential use cases that you can deliver value to your customers, to your employees, to your shareholders, and to your stakeholders. And so, I mean, just as one example, worked with an organization over the summer that did some testing with our Nova models, which we had an announcement on earlier today, and they were able to do 30,000 hours of video comprehension in a very short order using these new technologies, and immediately started to use those for new video generation capabilities. Now, again, this is augmenting the customer and, in this particular case, the fan experience, and something they just really weren't able to do. And so they're very, very excited. And so the why is behind your question is to give their customers and their fans new experiences that really weren't possible without this technology. Another area that I'm seeing customers starting to really think through and invest is around agentic workflows. And so let me just back up for just a moment on multimodality. And so I don't know if there's anyone here in the audience that works in the healthcare space, if you work with doctors, or if any of you happen to be primary care physicians, but the doctors that I talk to, they generally speak in terms of, I just want to spend more time with my patients and less time with paperwork and with computer systems. And so we're already seeing multimodality where we have things called ambient listening. And ambient listening gives us the ability, using this technology, to listen in on the doctor's conversation with the patient and automatically start to generate those notes. This is the diagnosis code. This is the prescription medication. And the doctors are really enjoying this because they're spending more time with their patients. The patients are enjoying it because they're spending more time with their doctors and less time being shepherded out for the doctor to take notes into their system. Well, now let me tie back to agents. Notice that I ended that conversation around prescription medication. The doctors are saying, well, what if it could take the next step for me and automatically call the pharmacy, place the order for that prescription medication, so by the time the patient walks out of the office, the order's already been sent, and if the pharmacy is close by, they can immediately pick it up. Wouldn't that be a better patient experience? And wouldn't that also reduce the amount of, I think the word that's being used right now is toil, the undifferentiated heavy lifting on the tasks that we end up doing. Mm-hmm. And so there's lots of use cases that we've seen around these agentic workflows that customers are really, really excited about.
Awesome. So now when you look at technology itself, right? We are seeing a war out there, a arms race out there as far as technology is concerned. Today itself, we heard so many new announcements coming in, and we're going to hear more tomorrow or day after as well out here itself. But so adopting technology is one aspect, but then when you look at it from an enterprise standpoint, right? There is also the risk mitigation and management of risk in those deployment, right? So really, you see technology and risk mitigation as two sides of the same coin, right, of implementation. So on the risk side, what are your views? What are you seeing on risk mitigation and even compliance for that matter?
Yeah, well, I really like that PowerPoint slide that we kicked off the presentation with the 5 different dimensions. Because I think one of the first risk areas is focusing on just one of those areas and not paying attention to the others. And so maybe I'll give some examples of that. And so whenever we're generating or creating a new use case or new application with this technology, we're introducing change. We're asking somebody to change their behavior. And so as part of change management, we want those users to be with us along for the journey. And so one of the risk areas I see is creating a proof of concept or a prototype but not having your stakeholders aligned and with you on the journey. And so ensuring that they are part of that decision, they're part of those user flows, they have validated and they can see where that's going to add value in how they work, I think is one of the areas that I've seen that we really want to make sure that we focus on. Another is on the area of, well, value realization. We had a great conversation here from United Airlines. If I can go ahead and maybe I get the KPIs a little mistaken, but on the Every Flight Has a Story, we had human intervention and it took 15 to 20 minutes in order to generate those stories. And with generative AI, that came in at 28 seconds. And so we have a huge step function increase in terms of the number of stories that could be published. If I'm not mistaken, we said from 15% over 50%. That's over 3x. But I really liked the last KPI that was mentioned, and that was the increase in our customer satisfaction. And so if we take a look at that, saying what potential value does this use case bring, we want to think in terms of what is the expected impact on our business? What is the expected impact or increase into, say, for example, our customer satisfaction metrics or our profitability or reduction in terms of cost of hours or cost of labor? And if we don't have that point of view, it's really hard for us to realize whether or not we should be continuing on and productionalizing this workload and taking it forward. So that would be the second risk that I would see, which is around just rationalizing the cost and the business value. I think the other is, over 10 years ago, AWS created the well-architected framework. And those pillars still apply within generative AI workloads. We still need to think through, did we architect for resilience? Did we architect for performance, for cost mitigation, for operational excellence, for sustainability? And so from that perspective, in not trying to treat these as non-enterprise grade workloads, they absolutely are, and making sure that your architecture follows that. And then I think another thing that I would see as risk variables is we want to make sure that we're evaluating how the models perform under different conditions. We want to take a look at governance models, things such as how we evaluate these models, how we look at things such as model drift, so that we have a better idea of how they will start to perform once we start scaling them out into production. And if we haven't really thought through that through the POC phase, we may be surprised. And so we want to kind of think through that as part of our testing process, and that is definitely a risk. And then finally, the last risk is I see a lot of organizations that are very focused on responsible AI pillars and tenets. Things such around toxicity, things such as bias, reducing hallucinations, looking at alignment. And so what we've seen organizations do, and this probably goes more into the people aspect of the 5 dimensions, is formulate what I would call cross-discipline or cross-functional teams that are there to help for the governance, for the bias mitigation, and ensure that you have clear tenets for how you handle responsible AI, and that no one single part of your organization or one single department has ownership of that, that you have stakeholders across departments so that you're making sure that you have buy-in across numerous groups and orgs.
Awesome, awesome. Now switching to best practices.
Yes.
So what are your perspectives around, let's pick one area, let's say prototypes to production.
Yeah, prototypes to production, yes. Continue.
That's a big area of focus in the industry. So would like to understand your perspective on some best practices around that. Where can we really accelerate?
Yeah, so I think some of the customer leaders that I speak to that have really kind of thought through this is who tend to look at it in terms of what is my level of expected impact and what's my level of expected effort. And what I mean by that is we can get some quick wins, and we learn a lot from quick wins, but we still need to see the positive value. And I talked about that a little bit in the previous answer. Well, at the same time, also looking at the ones that might be the really high game-changing or possibly company-changing return on investment or return on effort, return on, I'll say investment, but might have a higher level of effort. I talked through some of the risk variables in terms of, ensuring that we have alignment from our users. I think one that I didn't talk through is making sure that you also have alignment from your security teams, from your governance teams, and from your legal teams. And some of the best and smoothest paths to production is we have those conversations with stakeholders while we're conducting the POC, not after the POC. At that point in time, that's really late in the game to actually start having that conversation. I like to have a security engaged from the very beginning. And same thing with governance. And governance can cover things such as regulatory compliance. I work with some media organizations, and there's things such as Section 230 codes where we have to make sure that we're in government compliance. There's certain things within healthcare that we have to make sure that we are, compliant with GDPR and HIPAA compliance and what have you. Just making sure that you have those thought processes in place before you start executing the POC. That way, when you're done, you have those stakeholders aligned. You don't have to worry about those being no's, that you've thought through those in your architecture for your POC.
Okay, awesome. I think we're almost at time, so
Uh-oh.
I'd like to thank you.
No, thank
for
you.
sharing your views. And in fact, I'd like to thank all of our client speakers and Ashish for sharing your views as well. And thank you all for being here, for joining us on this session. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.